Good evening. It's Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. We're in Studio 6C today, and it's my pleasure and honor to be speaking with Mr. John J. Jeckovich. How are you doing today, Mr.
Very
Jeckovich?
good, very good, thank you.
You're looking well. You're looking quite well. How was your dinner?
Good, good,
Okay.
very good.
Okay. We're reading Mr. Jeckovich's book titled Their Mother's Sons. It's a big book. How many pages?
849.
It takes him from Mr. Jeckovich's age at 11, when he starts caring for his mother, because his father passed away, working 3 different jobs, to give better to his kids than what he had, and he died of a heart attack mixing cement. So the interesting book, it takes you from childhood to his mother's death when she was 89 years old, and includes various different jobs and businesses Mr. Jeckovich owned, including the World War II battles, which is frontline combat infantry, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a very interesting story, and of course the book is not for sale. It's just basically we're doing it here, reading it over the last couple of years, and as I said, we're in the second time around. We're on chapter 6 this time, and this chapter 6 is titled Home on Furlough and Farewell to Anne. Mr. Jeckovich was in Company H, the 2nd Battalion of the 291st Regiment of the 75th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army during World War II. Mr. Jeckovich lives by the motto, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. Well, we have to catch up on some reading because last 2 or 3 days, we've just been answering text messages. So let me just put a couple pages of the book under our belt, and then maybe we could have time for a few text messages. How's that?
okay.
All right. And in order to open up my laptop to get to the book, I'll need the passcode, and that's your dog tag number.
42965.
That's your dog tag number. Okay. That's your dog tag. Do you remember the date your mother was born?
No,
Do you remember the year?
no,
Yeah. Long time ago.
yeah.
Your mother was born in 1899.
Oh,
Imagine that.
gee, yeah, last century.
Yeah. 1899. She lived till 1987. Mr. Jeckovich was born in 1925, and now we're in 2025, and he's knocking on the door of 100.
Yeah, that's 30.
Yeah. So, when Mr. Jeckovich was born, gasoline was 7 cents a gallon. Beautiful houses were $2,000. Brand new cars were $500. Things are different now. And they were very lucky. They didn't have the bothersome task of owning all these cell phones and TVs and radio. They had none of that. They had a real simple life, and it served them quite well.
Yeah,
So let me put a couple pages under my belt, and then we can do some of the text messages,
All right.
okay? This is chapter 6, page 118, second time around. Home on Furlough and Farewell to Anne. I recollected how I had walked down the same alley in what seemed another lifetime, but in reality it was only a few short months ago. Nothing had changed, but me, and in my desperation to overtake my change, I had failed completely. The realization of my failure was brought home to me most vividly in a stark reality of returning home. There was no one home. My suspected mother was still working, and Sally was around somewhere in the vicinity. The back door was locked, and the key was still found to be in the milk box besides the door. I unlocked the door and entered a small hallway which led up the 3 stairs to the back door of the kitchen. I opened the basement door, peered down the stairway, but did not go down. Instead, I reached for the key to the kitchen, which was above the trim molding of the door, unlocked the door, and entered the kitchen. You didn't have to worry too much about house burglaries then.
No.
You never got, that house was never robbed, right?
No.
No acts of any type of criminal.
No break-ins or nothing, no.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think there was. Standing in the middle, how would it be today, you think?
No, bad, different culture.
Would you feel safe living there?
No, on Orleans Avenue?
Yeah.
No.
Standing in the middle of the kitchen, I was dismayed at the thought that I once lived here. In a short few months, I completely disassociated myself from any emotional attachment I had once felt here. I was thoroughly alienated from every aspect of it and knew that this no longer or would never again be my home. I almost felt utter repugnance as I walked through the home. This revulsion was not so much directed at the physical. This revulsion was not so much directed at the physical appearance of the surroundings, but more at the emotional sensitivity it triggered off in me. Here in the living room where most of the bickering and fighting took place, the physical blows as well as the emotional skirmishes. The silence that endured in here when no one would speak to one another for
23 minutes.
for several weeks, only to be broken by more discord and antagonism. The kitchen where we would take turns eating, never as a family group, but as select factions paired out to emotional affiliation and submissiveness. It was here that I would attempt to calm the various factions into the family and unit through my humbled and docile undertaking at cooking and baking. Needless to say, they all failed, but I'd keep on trying. As I walked into the two modest bedrooms, first my mother's and then ours, I noted that nothing had really changed. It looked all the same, right?
Yeah.
It was here in our bedroom that I would huddle in desperation, seeking solace for the protection for the night, hoping that our sleep would not be broken by some new onslaught of conflict. Was that downstairs or upstairs?
Downstairs.
Oh. I would never associate my mother's bedroom as mother's bedroom. It was always my father's bedroom, and he occupied it solely himself for most of the time. I recall that I would never enter it even when he was not home, but avoided it as some privileged sanctuary for my father alone. Here in the house was the secret, still unlocked, of why I could not release myself from its bondage and make a life with Anne. It seems strange to say the name of Anne here, as it should never be mentioned, as it did not exist. I could never in my wildest imagination think of bringing Anne into this environment. It was unthinkable as well as untenable. The mere thought of its happening made me shudder in disbelief and misgiving. I could no more bring her here than I could have sexual intimacy with her at the eventful night when she weakened through love of me and intervened, and we would not let her fulfill her loving desire. Again, as I was walked through the house, all my unconscious emotions were let loose in a torrent of despair and anguish. Yes, here was the reason I'd come back alone. Alone in my thoughts, not wishing to share them again with someone I had known and loved. I did not want Anne to be a part of this, to feel the pain and the dejection and a subtle deception. I wanted a new beginning, and I hoped in time our love would overcome my feeling of despair and despondency. I went down to the cellar stairs, and strangely, the thought of the basement and furnace as being my only friends in the house eluded me. It was only when I saw my initials burned into the rafters above the furnace that the thought returned to me. Do you remember burning them in?
Yeah. Both
Probably there today, right?
Yeah.
What'd you put, just JJ?
Yeah.
I had not thought of the basement and furnace for the longest time. As a matter of fact, I looked upon it as some frivolous, childish preoccupation. I looked about the basement. Once again, the fervor was gone. There was nothing I wanted down here. I did check the furnace to see how it had come through the previous winter. There were dried up ashes in the grates, as the ash pit was almost full. Was it coal or wood?
It was coal, not pea coal.
Back then it was coal, right?
Yeah. Well, it started out with wood and then it got pea coal.
And then eventually oil?
Small coal.
Then oil after that, right?
Small size coal, yeah.
Despondently, I walked upstairs and wondered how I was going to get through the next 12 days. I seriously thought of telling Mother and Sally that I was home for a week and then going back to camp early. I thought at that time that was an excellent idea. I would not commit myself to a positive date until I'd been here for several days. I felt better as I developed a plan for a shortened furlough. It would help relieve some of my discomfort I had caused Anne. I would have a longer time with Anne.
18 minutes.
And I would what I wanted to do all along. The feeling of joy overtook me in the belief that I had solved part of the immediate problem. It was the precise moment that my sister walked into the kitchen. She mistook the joy and happiness she saw on my face for a display of affection on seeing her once again. I hugged her and remarked that she had gotten taller. Okay, that's interesting. And older looking. She replied that I looked great and that I appeared different. I laughingly told her that it was a uniform. So you had your uniform on still, right?
Huh?
You had your uniform on still, right?
Yeah.
We talked for a while. When you're on furlough in Niagara Falls, New York, for those couple of weeks, did you have to wear your uniform?
Oh, yeah. You're still in the Army, yeah.
Would you have gotten in trouble?
MPs to pick you up.
Okay. Did you see MPs in the falls?
Oh, yeah.
They're everywhere, yeah. Okay, we talked for a while, and I asked her when Mother got off of work. She said at 16:30 hours, and that she usually got a ride home from a co-worker. I asked her if I should meet her with the car, but Sally informed me that they did not have a car. Sally then told me that she had promised a friend that she would be at her house to visit and plan some future events at school. I told her by all means to go, and I would sit around and wait for Mother. As she quickly made a dash for the kitchen door, she turned abruptly and said that she was glad I was home and she missed me. I smiled at her as she left the kitchen and closed the door.
That was a short visit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple minutes.
Yeah.
By the way, that's your sister Sally.
Yeah.
Sally married a man named Uncle Charlie, right?
Yeah.
How was he?
Yeah.
I remember he always wore suits and ties.
Yeah, he was smoking a cigar.
Okay. Your sister Sally, you were born in 25, and your sister Sally was born in 1932, and she died in 2011.
Yeah.
She died in 2011. Wow. I decided that I would cut my furlough short here and join Anne for the remainder of it. I went over timing of it and came to the conclusion I'd leave here on Sunday and arrive in Owensboro Tuesday evening. That's a long ride.
Yeah.
Leaving on Sunday and getting to Owensboro on Tuesday? That's a lot of work. I had to confirm train reservations and would do it first thing in the morning, tomorrow morning. I would also call Ann and tell her the good news that presented a problem, and I did not want to call her from here, and I did not have a car. Why didn't you want to use the house phone?
Well, it was the party line.
Okay, I understand. I would work something out. I also concluded, even though I had the intention long ago not to say anything to my mother and sister about going overseas, and most certainly not to mention Ann. I felt good that I had finally done something constructive as far as Ann and I were concerned. I realized then I decidedly hungry and that I had not eaten all day. It seems strange appearing in a refrigerator, as I've not done that for several months. So that must have been strange for, seeing a refrigerator for all the times you didn't have one. I found some meatloaf wrapped in foil and made myself a sandwich and had a glass of milk. Oh, that's interesting. Was the meatloaf good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Your
day
mother
old,
was a good
the day
cook,
old,
wasn't
yeah.
she? As I was cleaning up after eating, I heard a car door slam shut out front. It was Mother. She was very surprised to see me and wanted to know how long I'd been here. She hugged and kissed me on the cheek and said I looked different in my uniform. She asked me how long I was staying, and I replied that I had to leave early Sunday. She did not appear disappointed at the news, but only said that she was working all week, and she would give me a list of things to do around the house while no one was home during the day. So within minutes, oh boy, within minutes of coming home, she's got you a list to do to keep you busy during the day, right?
Yeah.
She also mentioned that Steve was stationed at Fort Belvoir in North Carolina and had been home several times. He had visited Jimmy Duncan. How was Jimmy Duncan?
Jimmy Duncan was Stevie's best friend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did he go into war?
I don't think so, no.
Ralph Ingstrom.
Yeah, I don't think he went either.
And former Scoutmaster
12.
Mr. Reynolds.
Yeah.
Looky, she said, was still in the Coast Guard station in California and had not been home at all. Were you surprised?
Yeah, no.
She then opened up the refrigerator. This is where you're home by minutes now, right? Just
Yeah.
a few minutes. Mother then opened up the refrigerator and remarked that someone had taken part of the meatloaf.
Oh, boy.
Oh, Jesus. I quickly stated I had. She seemed peeved somewhat and said that was supposed to be their supper.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
I said nothing and walked in the living room, knowing I had to make the right decision and leaving early. It was starting all over again, and I was once again in the midst of it all, and thankful. I was thankful that my brothers were not home. I did not know what to do with myself. I felt so alienated, so out of touch with everything. I had been home only a very short time, and within 5 minutes of seeing Mother, I had managed to aggravate her within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Jesus. I walked to the front window and looked out, hoping that I could see something out there to distract me from my frustrating thoughts. I could hear Mother rattling the dishes and pots in the kitchen, and I certainly knew what that meant. What does that mean?
She's mad.
She was angry. I did not go in the kitchen, but instead went out the front door, porch steps, and around the side of the house. I walked into the garage, which was behind the house, and slid open the door. There was nothing of significance in the garage. No car or just some things I had placed around the outside wall before I left. What happened to the car?
Yeah.
What happened?
They sold it.
Wow, I wish that was a beautiful Packard. Wasn't it?
Yeah.
A lawnmower rusting out, a wheelbarrow, some garden tools, an assortment of cardboard boxes becoming mildewed and resting on a garage floor. An old red wagon, which we used to carry vegetables from the city market.
Yeah.
Okay. It all looked forlorn. I had become accustomed to nittiness and preventive maintenance in the Army, and the sight of all this manifested itself. I stood in the middle of the garage not knowing what to do next. The only thing I could think of was several times that we had slept in a Packard, parked in a garage, and how I felt going to school the next morning. I told myself this was nonsense, bringing up all these ridiculous memories. I closed the garage door and went back into the house. Minutes, please.
Nine.
Sally was back home, that's your sister, and was talking to Mother in the bedroom. I went into the living room and sat down, feeling like I wanted a hot shower and a change of clothes. A short while later, Sally came in the room and sat down in a chair opposite me. She stated that after we had a little something to eat, she and her mother were going to the movies.
Yeah.
Oh, this gets better all the time.
Yeah.
First, you're starving. They haven't seen you in months. You ate the leftover meatloaf,
Yeah.
and now they're going to go to the movies.
Yeah.
Jesus. She further reiterated that Mother was collecting the dish set at the theater was giving out each week, and she did not want to miss a particular piece. So they give out free dishes at the...
Yeah.
Okay. I said that was fine, I'll do the dishes if they're running late. We sat down at the kitchen table and ate the remainder of the meatloaf, some mashed potatoes and green beans. Mother said that she would have fixed something better if she knew I was coming, but since she worked all day, and that's the best she could do. I smiled and said that was delicious, and it suited me fine. Minutes later, they were out the door in a rush. Wow. They're out the door in a rush. The movie started in a half an hour, and they had to walk to the theater. Where was the theater at?
On Niagara Street.
Was it on Niagara Street or Main Street?
Niagara Street, that was a small theater.
Okay, Niagara and what?
Niagara and Portage. No. Strata and Cataract were together
Okay, wasn't that
on East Fall Street.
Wasn't that a long walk?
Oh, yeah, about a mile, yeah.
After they left, I did the supper dishes and tidied up the kitchen. I also found some of my old civilian clothes. And before I changed into them, I took a cold bath. Why'd you take a cold bath?
Now they had to heat that water to a little stove down cellar.
Wow. I did not think it'd be appropriate to fire up the small stove, which heated the water. Besides, I did not think there was any cut-up dried wood available for this little stove. While I was in the basement, I noticed the wood pile was down considerably. That would probably be my first chore. I thought about the days I left before returning to Owensboro. How would I fill the time? Surely Mother would have enough for me to do around here. I also was giving some thought on how and where I'd contact Ann. It would have to be after 2100 hours. Things were much simpler at camp. I did not have to plan and micromanage each deliberate move as I was doing now. I felt as if each activity or function I made had to be evaluated and acted upon, that I was being constantly scrutinized. I sat in the living room for the longest time. I did not even turn on the radio. Instead, listened to the subtle noises the house made. The whirling of the refrigerator fan reminded me of my own thoughts, gyrating and spinning about in my head. Thoughts such as this, why I had come back at all. It was only a short period of the 7 months ago, 7 months ago, that I was hesitant and forlorn about leaving. My ambivalent feelings manifested themselves into a quick change I made it in my civilian clothes. It seemed that I was caught in the middle of two separate persons, both vying to overpower me in the orbit of rationalization. It was not as if I was helpless in my frustration, but that I felt a deep sense of guilt as well as feelings of desperation. Guilt that I was directly responsible for my mother's and sister's present condition. It was I, after all, who was accountable for my father's death, and my mother reiterated to me many times, and if I was left, and it was I who left them for the army to fend for themselves. Well, you got drafted. You didn't leave them, you had to go.
Yeah.
Uncle Sam says go, you had to go, you got drafted.
Or go to jail.
Yeah. Somehow I felt answerable for these deeds, and I did not know how to absolve it. I also felt some sense of desperation, and now I'd lose Anne forever. I had gone a long way toward that end in coming home on furlough rather than being with her. If I loved her as much as I professed to, why was I here and instead of being with her? Surely the thought must have crossed her mind, what must she think of my decision to leave? I looked at all the books and periodicals that I had accumulated in my young life, still stored in a small bookcase I had built while in grade school. The writings of Tolstoy, Freud, Shaw, H.G. Wells, and others did not seem that comforting and aligning with the dilemma I was now facing. I finally came to firm conclusion that I'd be with Anne, and I would have to live with my feelings and guilt and frustration. Okay, did you want to do some questions now?
Okay.
What's the minute count?
Two minutes and 40 seconds. 2 minutes, 40 seconds.
What was your first job, Mr. Jeckovich?
Kresge's.
Gretzky's? And what did you do there?
Stock boy.
Did you, oh, by the way, did you prefer baths or showers?
Huh?
Did you prefer baths or showers?
Took a bath, there was no shower there. I put a shower in the bathroom, the basement.
So on leave, if in order for you to take a hot shower, excuse me, a hot bath, you had to go in the basement and light up a...
No, I went to Hyde Park
But in your house, you'd have to go in the basement
and heat that little stove up
and
there.
heat up a stove with wood?
Yeah.
And then, so what was your plan? What did you decide to do instead?
Wait till the water got hot in that little stove and then take a bath.
I thought you said you went to Hyde Park.
Well, that's where I went. That's where I showered.
And they had hot showers there?
Oh yeah, that was by the golf course.
Okay, I understand. That's interesting. So that was a long ride from your camp in Evansville, Indiana, and Niagara Falls, New York.
Yeah.
So you had to take a bus to the train station, a train station to Buffalo, then a bus to Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
After they dropped you off during your furlough, and the bus dropped you off at Niagara Falls, how did you get from the bus station to your house?
The bus station?
When they they dropped you off the bus from Buffalo on your furlough, how did you get from the bus station in Niagara Falls to 3063 Orleans Avenue?
Well, I thought I saw Sally. I'd be there waiting for her.
Okay. When you were living at home, what was your favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday?
Yeah, when you were living at home.
Christmas, probably.
Christmas? Did you have a lot of relatives come over?
No, Uncle Andy. Uncle John didn't come over too much.
Why didn't he?
I don't know. It's just his nature.
I see. Wow.
30 seconds.
Oh. So when you came home from furlough, how long did you actually stay?
Well, I had 30-day furlough, then I was shipped over.
So how long did you stay at home? 30 days?
I stayed 30 days. No, I stayed 2 weeks, and I went back home, Owensboro.
Okay, how'd that go? Good?
Oh, yeah.
I see. So you had a pretty nice furlough then?
Yeah.
And you had some nice meals for your mother?
Yeah.